Welcome to New Awakenings with Edgar Cayce's A.R.E, where we have some incredible conversations that will hopefully not only educate you, but also inspire you as you begin or continue on your journey to enlightenment. We're your hosts, Karen and Will.
And today we are going to the very top of the Edgar Cayce A.R.E. We are no longer going to have middlemen in between us. No, I'm only kidding. We are excited to have the new CEO of the Edgar Cayce A.R.E. with us today. To give you a little bit of background on him, he has an extensive professional background in law, in broadcasting, holistic spirituality. He's a former New Jersey prosecutor, civil litigation attorney, and six-time Emmy Award-winning host and producer of the American public television program, The American Law Journal. Now, his New World radio program, examining world spirituality and parapsychology, aired on AM and FM radio. And he's a current guest host of the former PBS program New Thinking Aloud with Jeffrey Mishlove. And I don't want to talk anymore. I'd rather bring him onto the scene. So, Christopher Thornton, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Karen, Will, I've been watching you guys, and so we're gonna get this podcast up to 100,000 or more because you guys are so good. And I know it sounds like I'm just throwing smoke your way, but I really appreciate what you're doing, and we're going to get it out there. We really are. There's so many good things, and you guys are good at what you do.
Well, thank you. And hey, I'm all about smoke, so.
Positive smoke.
We appreciate that, yes.
We are very, very excited to have you on the show. There are so many changes coming on with the A.R.E, and a new incoming CEO always has a lot on their plate. So can you give us an idea of what your thoughts are? What's the direction of the A.R.E. moving forward?
Wow, yeah, there are a lot of moving parts here at A.R.E. We've got the SPA, we have the Casey Riley School, we have Atlantic University, we have the Association for Research and Enlightenment itself, we have conferences, we have Wednesday night webinars, we have New Awakenings. I mean, there's a lot going on here. We have the bookstore. I mean, I could go on for another half hour just describing all the amazing things. But, we come from this lineage of perhaps the greatest American mystic in U.S. history, Edgar Cayce. And Edgar Cayce unveiled universal mysteries to the Western mind unlike anyone else. That's where I began. I think at some point in time, Edgar Cayce should be as well known as, for different reasons, as Billy Graham, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Carl Jung, or Mary Baker Eddy. These people are titans in American religious history. Cayce was not a religionist, he was a mystic. He was into the spiritual, not religious. So that's where we start. And my goal, my vision is, let's get that word out to the entire world, because at the end of the day, 50 years from now, I want people to say, who was that Billy Graham guy? But we knew who Edgar Cayce was. Right. Because then it would show to me that the great metaphysical awakening that I see happening on the planet, in the nation right now, would assure me that, boy, the work that we did here at A.R.E. got out to the entire nation, to the entire world.
Right.
And it really is incredible. You feel it. Everyone's talking about it. Your books are coming out, shows. I mean, it's everywhere. We're all waking up. And hopefully we're waking up together. So for someone who is just starting to kind of get an inkling of all of this, and you hear about the Edgar Cayce, and it's got the school and the spa and where's a good starting ground for them?
Well, it all depends on where they are on their spiritual journey. So people who may just be coming out of fundamentalist church, or maybe they're an atheist, they may want to start and say, well, my mind, my life is a little bit, chaotic right now. Let me plug into meditation. So Edgar Cayce was talking about meditation long before anyone else in the West, long before the Vedas became popular, because the transcendentalists brought it to America, long before the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi taught Americans meditation is good for your life. Long before that, Edgar Cayce, a Christian, a dyed-in-the-wool Christian mystic, was talking about settle your mind. Prayer is important, but if you're not meditating, meditate. So for the beginners, they may want to jump in there. Those people have been on the path for a while. Maybe they've been into holistic health. And again, Edgar Cayce was, American Medical Association called him the father of holistic health. If they've been on the path for a while, they may want to look more into reincarnation. They may want to look more into near-death experiences. They may want to look into ancient mysteries or ancient civilizations such as Atlantis. That's here on the campus as well. And for those people who have been deeply, deeply involved in a meditative practice, in a spiritual practice. They may want to become part of the so-called mystery school. There are people who have followed the Edgar Cayce readings now for decades, and although they may be gray-haired, long in the tooth, they have a certain wisdom that they have earned by being students for these readings for decades after decades. And they believe they're like the modern day Essenes. And Edgar Cayce predicted, before he died, obviously, in 1945, that we would somehow learn about this group called the Essenes that helped bring the Christ through Jesus into the world. There are people today who believe that they are there to purify themselves, to be on a spiritual path to help bring the Christ into the world at this time. So those are people who have been dedicated for a long time. But people who come to the A.R.E. just beginning, in the middle, or those people who've been on the path for a long time.
Wow.
That's great. And I know you have a question, but I'm going to just jump into something slightly different, but kind of the same, something you touched on. So Edgar Cayce was the first, very well-known mystic, and how do you think it was possible for him to be so accepted? Was it because he kind of straddled Christianity and mysticism?
Well, it's interesting, Karen, because sometimes I think he was not so well accepted. There was so much pushback, certainly from scientific materialism, certainly from Christian fundamentalism. Some of you folks may know that part of my education was at Regent University before it was even Regent University. And so you talk about Virginia Beach and you talk about the fact that Edgar Cayce was brought here by God. Spirit said this is the place where your psychic powers are going to be most conducive, and it's going to help you in what you do. But Pat Robertson thought the same thing and started the Christian Broadcasting Network and the 700 Club. But the reason he came here is because he felt he had to counterbalance the darkness of Edgar Cayce on the other side of town. So as you say, being accepted, there is still some resistance to what Edgar Cayce stood for. Not the same as it was when Edgar Cayce moved to Virginia Beach 100 years ago this September. He moved from Dayton, Ohio in September 1925. And so he was here for 20 years until his death in 1945. But the interesting thing is, and I will address your question, but once he moved, I mean, he did 14,000 readings in his life. We know that. 9,000 of those readings just to help his fellow man get better, to heal. People who had had tuberculosis, like his wife, or had any other kind of illness, he was there to help his fellow man. Once he moves to Virginia Beach, much like the reading said, this area near the ocean in Virginia Beach is going to help be a superconductor of your psychic talents, of your ability to give readings. And what happens at that point? More readings about reincarnation, astrology, Atlantis, Egypt, near-death experiences, all of what people for many years have called woo, right? But he introduced the West to these concepts, and slowly but surely people could see the genuineness of those readings. And a book came out, There Is a River, and Coronet Magazine did an article on him. So people started to see this stuff works, and it started to expand what people even thought about Christianity could even be. And even the notion of who Jesus is and was and what he means to us. I mean, I think the great traditions in our country, and I go to New Thought, think the Transcendentalist William James, those in the 19th century, Ralph Waldo Emerson came out with these very revolutionary concepts with Christianity, and that is that Jesus is not the great exception. He's the great example.
Yes.
And so when you start talking about these very esoteric interpretations of the life of Jesus and who he may have been in a prior life, that's going to turn some people off. And that's why it's not wholly accepted or widely accepted, but a number of people started to say, wow, we're talking about this concept of the Christ and what that means to me, what that means to you, what that means to the collective. So I think the fact that so much of his stuff worked and some of it expanded people's perspectives, that more and more people started to accepting those readings and that wisdom. And nowadays, people who meditate may never have heard of Edgar Cayce. People who believe in reincarnation may never have heard of Edgar Cayce.
I can't imagine that being the case, though.
Well,
but it's true.
I would like to think that, you know, I wish that, and that's part of my charge here as CEO, is to make sure that everyone understands that when it comes to Western mysticism and things such as Western meditation, that Edgar Cayce was the pioneer, is the gold standard. But you see, maybe us, because we have been exposed to the readings of Edgar Cayce, but I think many people don't know that Edgar Cayce.
Even when I was a kid, one of the first books in this space for me was the Edgar Cayce Encyclopedia. It was a massive book that introduced me to the Edgar Cayce readings.
Where did that happen? Your parents didn't hand that to you?
Actually, my mom was a seeker, so
you benefited from that.
I did hugely. Maybe that's why I stumbled across Edgar Cayce. But I feel Edgar Cayce is synonymous with this type of awakening.
He absolutely is, and that's why this is a great center for people who want to take that next step in their spiritual journey that goes far beyond fundamentalism or orthodoxy or atheism or scientific materialism.
Yeah.
But you were lucky because your mom was a seeker.
Yes.
I grew up a Catholic, and it only was after I discovered Edgar Cayce I started discovering Catholic mystics.
Right.
You know, like Meister Eckhart and Thomas Merton and P.R. Chardin. When I was in Catholic school or taking catechism, never heard about that mystical path.
Right.
So you were lucky, Will.
Yeah, no, I count myself very lucky, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think kind of to I don't know, expand on that, or one of the issues that we have now, especially as, I don't want to say as we get older, as people get younger, you look at something that's from the 40s, or when you're like, oh, that's outdated, that's not relevant anymore. But really, it's important to look and to understand the history of how all of this came together and how much it impacts and affects life today, and how it is, it's very important, and it's so foundational that I think it's a disservice to people who don't take the time to look into the roots of meditation, mysticism, and of what we're talking about now. And that's something that I think you are helping promote with this foundation, which is excellent.
Absolutely. And my background in broadcasting, we are trying to create greater alliances with the History Channel, with Gaia, and to do the kind of broadcasting and programming that now has become much more popular. And we have out here in our lobby at A.R.E., when I was a young man and I came here to the A.R.E. in whatever.
Me too, yeah.
We used to have there was always a film playing out in the lobby, a gold grainy film.
Yeah.
And I thought we really need to have something out here in this lobby that shows a documentary that shows Edgar Cayce. Well, because others have caught up to Cayce, and again, I looked at the History Channel as one among several. One of the best documentaries ever made on the life of Edgar Cayce was done by Ancient Aliens, okay? Now, I understand they've got to tie it into their theme, although Cayce did talk about other races, not a lot, but he did talk about other beings from other planets and other dimensions. So we do check that box. But there's a documentary that shows how Edgar Cayce is very much relevant today. So all the mysticism and all the mysteries that people really want to explore into, not just meditation, although that's important, not just mindfulness and holistic health, although that's very important, but all of those very odd, high strangeness that we call it, that people are interested in. That's why I like to say here at A.R.E., when people ask me, what do you address and cover here? I say pretty much everything from Jesus to aliens. Because that's part of the psychic or the non-local consciousness continuum that we address here. So people have thought, well, Edgar Cayce and A.R.E., it's a museum. We are, if we have not been, I promise you, we will be on the cutting edge of any discussion dealing with consciousness, non-locality of consciousness, psychic phenomena, channeling, clairvoyance, telepathy, all the stuff that people used to think were woo. That now they're starting to say, wait, there's something to that. And we really shouldn't be surprised, because the greatest quantum physicists said in the 1920s and 30s and 40s that consciousness is fundamental. Consciousness is fundamental. I mean, even Albert Einstein said that time and space are illusions, albeit stubborn ones. But what does that tell you? Doesn't it tell all of us? It's like, I'm a lot more than my body. That when my brain dies, it doesn't mean I die. And again, some people grapple with the term non-local consciousness, but all it means is that our consciousness is not created by a material brain. Our consciousness is elsewhere. Our consciousness is non-local, it's timeless, it's without space. And so that's why even some of the great things that Cayce talked about, reincarnation, the studies that they have done today at the University of Virginia, just up the road a couple of hours. If you haven't watched or listened to some of those stories, and I would recommend to the people watching here today, watch Surviving Death on Netflix. Our friend Leslie Kane, who authored the book and actually was a producer for that series, has amazing, put the hair on the back of your neck stories about people who've had near-death experiences and reincarnation stories. And if that doesn't open your mind up to thinking that this is a possibility, you ain't alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely becoming much more broad in acceptance with not just those types of documentaries, but everyone's talking about it these days. So, and the energy here at the ARE is palpable. To your point, it's not a museum. It's so much more than that. It's a place to learn and to get in connection with this type of consciousness exploration that you have. The wonderful thing about the ARE is that yes, we encourage everyone to come and experience the energies here in person, but you also offer so many different potential ways of connecting to the Cayce material virtually.
Yeah, all over the world. Anybody can access it.
That it's no longer, oh, got to go to Virginia Beach. It is accessible to you wherever you are in the world, and that's a testament to the direction that the ARE is heading in, because it's so important.
We're going to be putting a lot more emphasis on broadcast. We're going to be putting a lot more emphasis on getting the word out. We're going to put a lot more emphasis on both national and international outreach. As you guys know, I'm a guest host for New Thinking Aloud, which works very well with what we're doing here at ARE. And almost half of their audience is international. And so with AI, I mean, it's truly amazing. Like, I interviewed John Van Auken, the great John Van Auken, here at ARE and also for New Thinking Aloud. And the day is coming really soon where John and I are going to be sitting across from each other talking, or we'd be talking like we are today, and your mouth, Karen, and your mouth, will be speaking Chinese, and my mouth will be speaking Chinese, or Portuguese, or Albanian, or Italian, or French, or whatever. Pick any language you want. And you know, we do have people that are connected to the ARE in something like 45 countries around the world.
And in fact, that is possible today, right now. We're doing some testing with our show, but yeah, it's incredible. The possibilities are endless. So I think that it's going to connect us much more as time goes on. But I want to talk about your book, America's Next Great Awakening.
Right.
You believe that we're living in a time of great crisis, but also a time of great opportunity. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, whether you talk to some of the most esteemed historians, or if you know some very profoundly professional astrologers, they would tell you that we are in a similar cycle to where we were at the time of the American Revolution, the American Civil War, World War II, and today. That every 80 to 90 years, America goes through an existential crisis that puts it on the precipice of whether it will survive or not. But in each case, America has reinvented itself. So at the American Revolution, we were all British subjects pretty much. We come out as independent. Civil War, we used to call ourselves these United States. Robert E. Lee felt he had to go with his country first, which was Virginia. After the Civil War, we call ourselves the United States. We know that America was the arsenal of democracy that saved the world from autocracy in the 1940s. This also lines up astrologically every time the planet Uranus, which is the planet of revolution and change and shock and technological advancements, every time it goes into Uranus, it lines up with these existential crises. And Uranus has just gone into Gemini. So buckle yourself in, you know, and you already know, and again, I would go to a historian like a Neil Howe, who wrote a great book called The Fourth Turning, who I had a chance to interview. He and his now deceased partner, William Strauss, said back in 1997 that by the year 2025, America would be going through a great gate in history where it would feel like even democracy and its life in democracy was at stake.
Interesting.
Wow.
So we are obviously in a polarized age, culturally, sociologically, politically, climatologically, but don't lose hope, because when things get stretched, that's when evolution occurs. So a lot of us rue what's going on in the news, and we feel like, how are we ever going to get out? And this is the worst of times. Actually, we've been through a lot worse times. I wouldn't want to have lived through the Civil War. And we don't have to go through that kind of violence again, but make no mistake, this world is ready to make a leap forward. And if we get through this, and as I say in my book, America's Next Great Awakening, I do believe we will get through it, we will reinvent ourselves. And part of that reinvention is what we're doing here at A.R.E.
Yeah.
It's a metaphysical awakening where we realize our connection with one another is more deep and profound than we ever thought, that our relationship to a man like Jesus and his consciousness is accessible to us. These things ye shall do even greater than I. Well, by what range of consciousness would I have to access if that were true? But these things now are at our fingertips, and that's what we're doing here at A.R.E. is to move to that next step.
Absolutely.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, thank you for giving us hope. Because it's true, you get caught up in
You do.
everything.
It's easy to get caught up in the moment.
If you look at it in the way that you're saying, it makes perfect sense. It's like a rubber band. When you pull back the rubber band, you stretch, and all of a sudden you let go of it. How far does that rubber band actually fly? So maybe that's what we're going through right now. So, you are an absolute wealth of knowledge.
I don't think there's anything you don't know. Like, wow.
Trust me.
I'm still hiding my social
That's why
security
when I
number.
go on other media, I have John Van Auken with me because he's the Edgar Cayce jukebox.
Yes.
Well,
You
that's
know,
true.
you press any button and you're going to get a beautiful song playing
Yeah.
about Cayce or metaphysics. I don't have the knowledge of a Mark Thurston or a Kevin Tedeschi or a Corinne Cayce or John Van Auken. I can't name Cayce's readings chapter and verse like they can, like a good Baptist preacher can name scripture, right?
Yes.
But I think I have a great appreciation for Edgar Cayce's place in American and world history, and I think it's our time.
Well, I think
Yeah.
it's a great 1-2 punch, pardon the term, because you have the folks who are very versed in Cayce knowledge, and then you have you who are versed in everything else outside of that, and together it's a formidable duo. So, congratulations! I believe they are in great hands. So, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your expertise with us, and we look forward to a much more interactions between us
Absolutely.
in the future.
Karen, Will, thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here.
Pleasure having you.
All right.
That does it for this episode of New Awakenings with Edgar Cayce's A.R.E. If you missed any of this conversation or any of our others, please feel free to go to edgarcayce.org/resources. You'll find all of our episodes laid in there directly for you, so it's easy for you to get caught up. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of New Awakenings with Edgar Cayce's A.R.E.